Articles come in three basic categories: scholarly, trade, and popular. Each category matches up with a particular audience. Scholarly articles are written for a scholarly audience. Trade articles are written for a professional audience, and popular articles are written for a general audience. Different kinds of articles can appear visually similar, so the best way to tell them apart is to look at the kind of information they contain and how they're written. Professors will specify the kinds of articles you can use in any given project, so telling these categories apart can be kind of important. Like telling Winona's native blue herons apart from the majestic and elusive Minnesota werewolf, which is what this video is going to cover. Categories of articles, I mean. At this point, the whole werewolf thing should be pretty clear. Scholarly articles are written for, and by, scholars. That usually means someone with a PhD who works at a university, but it can be anyone who has expertise in a subject. The purpose of scholarly articles is to share new academic knowledge, like an interpretation of a poem, a mathematical proof, or the results of an empirical study. That can be complicated stuff, and it shows in the way they're written. Big words, long sentences, and specialized terminology, also called academic jargon, are typical. Nowhere is this more evident than in their titles, which are long and extremely specific. Here's a sample. Transcriptome-wide expression variation associated with environmental plasticity and mating success in Cactophilic Drosophila mohevensis. Whew, say that 3 times fast. Scholarly articles draw from and build on previous research, which they give credit to in their lists of references. These can vary in length, but they'll always be there. That's actually one of my favorite features of scholarly articles. They include these lists of quality research related to their topics. Find one relevant article and you've found 3 or 37. Furthermore, these are the articles your teachers will expect you to use in most of your projects. Just to keep things interesting, they might call them peer-reviewed articles, refereed articles, academic journal articles, or even just articles. Regardless of what they're called, they contain the most reliable information available because every article has to go through a rigorous review process before it gets published. Seriously, it's why Winona State pays cash money for access to the databases that contain them. Trade articles are written for professionals like nurses or teachers, and their purpose is to share new or better ways of performing job-related tasks. That could be a method for drawing blood or a lesson plan for teaching long division. The information they contain often comes from on-the-job experience, but sometimes professors will write trade articles to suggest a practical application for their research. And the writing in these things will vary in complexity. Trade articles often employ their own professional jargon, though, which can make them just as challenging to read as a scholarly article, at least until you learn the terminology. They include lists of references, too. Just to give you a heads up, trade articles can resemble scholarly articles because some trade journals walk the line between scholarly and trade. The publishing process for trade articles isn't usually as rigorous as what scholarly articles go through, though, so the chance of less reliable information showing up is a bit higher. But they're still good sources of information, and a lot more trustworthy than a popular article. If, after examining an article, you still aren't sure what you're looking at, you might want to check the journal homepage to see how they describe themselves. Popular articles are written for a general audience. Their purpose is to provide timely information in a form that most people will find easy to read, like articles in newspapers, magazines, or blogs. Popular articles are mostly useful if you're doing research on current events because they can be written and published quickly. We're talking days or even hours. That speed isn't entirely a blessing, though, since quick work can lead to mistakes, and the publishing process is much less rigorous than what scholarly or even trade articles go through. But scholarly and trade articles can take months or even years to produce, and if you need information about an earthquake that happened last week, popular articles will be one of the only available sources of information. Anybody can write a popular article, and it's not unusual for a scholar or professional to be the author. Usually, though, journalists write them. Popular articles tend to be fairly short, under a page or so, and rarely cite their sources. These 3 categories of articles can be tough to tell apart, especially if you don't have piles of experience doing it. Like anything else, you'll get better over time. When in doubt, ask your professor or ask a librarian. Winona State librarians are crazy good at figuring this stuff out, and the more difficult the challenge, the better they like it. They'll teach you to fish for information like a blue heron after carp. Carp.